match up with Pella windows and Marvin windows to get us historical reproductions. We were able to do that. We chose Marvin windows, which was spec'd out to be a better window at a cost of $300,000 and replaced all the windows in that library. It took us 3 years just to get through the bureaucracy of the State Historic and Museum Commission to do it, because it is not the same window that was in there. We actually have an energy efficient window that saves us money on utility bills. They look as good, if not better. We don't have to paint them. So that was the main thing that we've done in the last 5 years. If you take a look at the list of the renovations we've done windows, we remodeled and restored our auditorium. Believe it or not, the auditorium was built in the library because Connellsville had a symphony back in the early 1900s. It used to play every Saturday night or every other Saturday night in the library. That's why there's an auditorium in there. So we renovated it. We had to put in a new heating system, a new roof. We redid the children's library. We provided new lighting through about 70% of the library. We added a museum, and we redid the front door, which alone cost $27,000. Much of the renovations could not have taken place without some free labor for the project. Some of that labor came through the Connellsville Career and Technical Center. They helped us install some lighting, museum renovations, and plus they installed a new sidewalk for us. I mean, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have been able to do a lot of what we've done. Funding for this has been provided through many foundations throughout the area, namely Mellon Foundation, Allegheny Foundation, Hillman Foundation, and others. I don't want to leave somebody out. Kuhn Foundation was another one. So with that, we couldn't have done it. All of these renovations were done without any increase in funding since 1958. About 68 years, for the same amount of money that the city has been giving us since 1958. And let me explain to you. If you turn to page 3 of the PowerPoint, the story was quite a remarkable story. A group of citizens in the community, including some doctors, wrote a letter on April 19th, 1899 to Andrew Carnegie to build a library. Andrew Carnegie wrote them back a letter dated April 24th, 1899, 4 days later after he got the original letter, and said, I'll build you a library. One of the provisions of his letter was the city had to pass a tax to support the library, because he wasn't going to build a big building and not have anybody support the library, and then it fall to disrepair. The city at that time, it was a borough, Connellsville was a borough at the time, and they passed an ordinance that said that they would provide 1 mil of taxes forever for the library. Andrew Carnegie built the library, took 2 years to build. It was built in 1903. And the people started to get taxed at that time when it was finished. A group of citizens did not want to pay a tax for a library, a special 1 mil tax. So they went to city council with a petition of a little over 100 names and said, city council or borough council at the time, we would like for you to reconsider this tax. The borough council said, you know what, we can't. We made a contract with Andrew Carnegie to build this library. It was actually through the Carnegie Institute. And we can't go back on that, but here's what we'll do. We'll put it on a city referendum for the people to vote on. And so it was. They put it on in 1904. In January, the borough council voted to do that. And in February of February of 1904, it was voted on by by the citizens of Connellsville, and it passed about 700 votes to 400 votes to continue to support the library. Part of that referendum, and I will read to you, is on Exhibit 1. And if you take a look, I have it marked. If you look down to the part where it says second, it says part of the referendum that people voted on said second, that if the said question be determined in the affirmative, meaning if they voted for it at the said election, the said rate of taxation or appropriation for the said purpose shall not change until the change be authorized or directed by a subsequent popular vote. So what was part of that resolution was that this ordinance could not be changed, meaning 1 mil would go to the city unless city council, borough council, or whomever would put that on there. Since then, the Carnegie Library was being paid 1 mil until the year 2003. What happened in 2003? Fayette County hadn't been reassessed for 48 years. Every politician that wanted Fayette County to be reassessed, they said, we're not going to do it because we'll get voted out of office. It was voted upon. 1 mil skyrocketed the rate in Connellsville from about $37,000, $38,000 in my recollection up to over $160,000. With that being said, the law still remains in effect that the library should get 1 mil, which would be $160,000 plus per year. Now, should the library get an increase of that much? Technically, no, but technically, yes as well. If you took the original stipend that the city got, or city or borough at the time gave the library, and you took the time value of money and took into account of inflation of approximately about 2% per year, the library should get over $100,000 from the city. But again, there was that 48-year period where the city, it became a line item on a budget as opposed to 1 mil. And that's kind of where we are today. Furthermore, if you take a look to page 4, you look at the pie chart on the PowerPoint. Pie chart number 1, if you take a look, shows the city of Connellsville has its breakdown of funding, whereas the city of Connellsville local municipal income is about 23%. With the state aid being a little bit more than that, it comes into about 33%. The state average is what's below. The state average is local municipalities give about 60%, and the state giving about 17%. If you go look at like a Norwin library, they get hundreds of thousands of dollars for their library, just based by those special taxes that were passed. What does this mean to the city of Connellsville? What does a library mean to the city of Connellsville? 2016, we marked, if you take a look at slide 6, well, let me back up to slide 5. Is the library solvent? The answer is technically no. You take a look at the 2016 and 2017 budgets, our deficits run about $30,000 and $35,000 respectively for those periods. We've been able to make those up through separate fundraising activities, and it's been very difficult. We did get one grant from a foundation that was for operating. I can tell you this, when you go out and you seek grant funding for a nonprofit like a library, few will give you money for operating. It's basically all, well, we need a new roof, you need new windows, we'll give you money for that. If you can't sustain the operation of the library, then they may not give you a grant for a new roof and so on and so forth. We've been operating at a deficit probably for at least the last 5 to 7 years. It's very difficult in today's day and age, as things go up, to continue to operate on the same level. I must reiterate too, the money that the city gives, the state puts that into a formula. The more money the city gives, the more money we get from the state. That hasn't happened because we've been constant for the last 68 years. What makes up our budget? The bulk of it is made up by wages and utilities. I mean, we have very little money. The money that we do for capital improvements that we started, anywhere from 5 to 3 years ago, those monies came from grant money. The money for our budget, if we wouldn't have got those grants, we'd have probably had to shut the library doors. We needed a new roof. It was a 35-year-old roof with 20-year-old shingles on it. It had to be done. The windows were falling out. The ceiling was caving in the auditorium. You go up to that place now, it's truly a show place, and it's a place I'm proud of. But for the 20 plus years I've been on this board, we never had the money to do anything. And fortunately, we've been able to contact foundations and get some things done. We were able to provide computers to the people in the community. We have about 20, 25 computers, from laptops for teens to use in the teen area, to desktops that are used in the research room, and so on and so forth. We have even in the children's room. We have Wi-Fi. We have a cafe that has one of the greatest lunches in town. I'm very proud of what they've been able to accomplish. We have a museum, children's story hours, diverse programming, genealogy services free of charge. We have a venue for students and tutors to use, all free. And in the basement, we were able to contract out to the Private Industry Council where we provide GED classroom services and GED tutoring for kids that dropped out of high school. And most importantly, what I think, we do all these different things. If that venue can make the difference in one kid's life in this city, to keep them out of drugs or to promote them to go to school or to go to college, it's worth more than the $35,000 a year that the city has. So why are we here? Rumor has it I needed to update you on where we are within the city. We've been making this thing work for the last 20 years that I've been on the board, and I think I'm the longest standing board member. Don is my vice president. He's been in that position for several years as well. Sometimes we have to beg, borrow, and steal to make it work, but we've been able to do it. We're not here to ask you for $160,000. We've heard rumors and innuendos that our funding is looked to be cut. This happened back in around 2005 as well. We had to solicit counsel. He wrote a letter then to you guys saying if you do, we have a pretty good lawsuit, we think, against you, provided what the law was in there to come back and get not only the back money, but to force you to bring it up to $1 million. Do we think we want the $1 million right now? We'd love to have it, but we know that the city is not in a position to give us $1 million. And, but we're not in a position to lose any more money. As you can see, we're going to be $35,000 behind next year. Personally, I think every town needs a library. Library is very important, not only to the kids, to the people. And like I said earlier, we get about 53,000 patrons a year that use that library. We have counters. We were kind of forced into it through the state. And so it is well used. And it's increasing year after year due to the renovations we made and the programming that we have. We had the same librarian for 4 decades. She passed away. We had an interim librarian for a little while, and we're lucky enough to have a Connellsville resident, Eileen, to have a Master's of Library Science to be able to take on what Julie Allen has done for the last 40 years or so. And if we didn't have Eileen here, we wouldn't be allowed to keep the library open. The state requires you to have the state librarian with a master's degree in library science. Tough degree to come up with, and a tough degree to find someone in this market. I think there's only 2 colleges or universities, University of Pittsburgh and Clarion, that offer that program. So you're kind of handcuffed. And we were blessed to have her, and she's done a great job over the last 3 years or so, getting us to where we are today. So with that, I'm not here to beg you for money. I'm just asking you to keep the status quo, keep in mind where we are financially, and if there's anything that you can do to help us in the future and work with us in the future to increase that funding, even if it's just incrementally, we would appreciate it because we like to keep the momentum going what's going on at the library. I think it's to our best interest to keep that going on both sides, both the city and us, both on a contractual arrangement that was made with Andrew Carnegie and the Carnegie Institute from 1899, plus the ordinance that was passed that I showed you back in 1904. So with that, I'd open it up to any questions anyone has of me, but I'm pretty proud of what we've done in the last 3 to 5 years at that library. We've had this year everything from weddings to birthday parties to book signings to children's programs go on in that auditorium. That $100,000 we were afforded through the Hillman Foundation to get that auditorium done has already paid for itself in the number of people that we have use that auditorium. And again, when you have a 113-year-old building, things break every day. With that heating system we had was 60 years old. I know Attorney Witt He's on our board, he understands. Sometimes we have to beg, borrow, and steal. You know, I'd like to thank the city of New Haven Hose. During the windstorm of a few weeks ago, we had a huge tree topple over. And they came and they picked it up. We really didn't have the money to pay someone to do it, and it was taken care of. In addition to that, the 3 projects that we're going for funding through foundations for, number 1, we'd like to increase the alley behind the, I shouldn't call it an alley, but the driveway behind the library, cut into the wall, put a retaining wall up, and put diagonal parking that will support the cafe a little bit to increase. Number 2, behind the stage upstairs, there's empty space that's provided through the stacks. With that, we'd like to put a floor in there and use that for storage for the chairs and the tables that are used in the auditorium. And number 3, one of the things that we would like to do is to upgrade our bathroom facilities, which are like the original bathrooms from 1903, to make them ADA accessible. And we think there's some state grants that you can get to do that. So with that being said, you know, I'm done with the presentation, but I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that I can, and if I can, I'll make up an answer. But I appreciate your time and efforts in thinking about us. Again, I don't come here often, but we are Connellsville. You know, I don't live in the city of Connellsville, but you know, most of our employees do. I think all of them do. And they all also, you know, they work there, and I think most of our board is there. And I'm very proud to say that I'm part of that library. And I've been 20 years, and I put a lot of sweat effort into trying to make that thing work. And I think we got it to a point where, you know, this thing is really something to talk about now. So open up any questions.
Yeah.
My question is, you said that the more money you get from the city, the more you get from the state.
Right.
Is there like an equation, or is there a matching?
There is,
funds,
but
or-
you almost need to be a Harvard MBA to figure it
Oh,
out.
okay.
It's not
I
just
thought
if
maybe
you
it
give
was
us,
simple.
yeah, if you give us 40, they give us 60. It's not like that. Eileen may be able to answer. There's a whole budget process we have to put through, and they look at it year to year, and it changes. So there is a matrix that they put it through.
Well, I'm glad that you came here tonight to give us all this information. They know I love the library. I'm there all the time, so.
Thank you.
It's wonderful what's been happening over the past, like, probably decade, especially the past few years, so.
Tom, did you have a question?
More of a statement. You guys are to be commended for what you've done up there. And it's the epitome of every small town. We have to do more with less.
Right.
And you guys are pulling that off on a yearly basis. And when I looked at the museum, I thought that was, you had something happened in the museum, right?
We had the roof collapsed, or the ceiling collapsed. It was basically, we didn't have a leak. The lath nails rusted over years, and the ceiling collapsed. We had a local company called Lyons Properties. John Ricker came in and did it for next to nothing. And we have it up, and the Votech's going to replace the lights. So it should be up and running shortly. I don't know if we have a date for the lights yet, but you know, if it wasn't for Votech, they come in and do a lot of stuff. We hire local contractors when we can. But I'll tell you, it's been an adventure for the last 20 years trying to make it work.
Well, you guys have done a beautiful job on it, and we are blessed because, you know, we have the library, we have this room, then we have the library, and then we have the Porter Theater, which we can escalate with the needs of how many people we're expecting to get something. So it really is tailor-made to work for more than just checking out a book. It's valued here. And again, I'm glad you guys are doing.
I want to personally thank Tom too. About 3 years ago, we found a time capsule. We didn't know where it was, and we found it. And Tom actually came with Chelsea Rittenauer and Blaine Brooks, and they showed up with all this equipment, and we were like little kids trying to cut the whole library down to find this little capsule, and we did, and we pulled it out, and you know, everybody wanted to open it right then and there, and we had the big ceremony that did, and that kind of led to the renovation of that room, because it was seafoam green and falling apart and plaster coming off the ceilings. When you have no money to do it, you have to employ foundations to be on your side. And luckily, we found a gentleman by the name of Bob Teeter from